Well, let me make sure my computer has power there.
Power would be good. We'd hate to lose you. I think we're live, Greg. Can you confirm?
I'll wait for
Yeah,
this.
we are.
Looks like it. Hold on.
There we go.
There we are.
Okay, we're live. Hey guys, welcome to the hot seat. We've got Henry with us. We were actually started before you guys joined, so you're just gonna have to join us in our conversation. I'm really excited to have you on, Henry, because we've been crossing paths and we've worked together a little bit, and you've been really active in the 1%. So
Yeah.
just the opportunity to get to know you a little better. I love the fact that I can abuse the fact that I have a podcast and a show here, and I just sort of hang out with you for no other reason. But let's you've been going through like a lot of change lately, right?
Let's cycle back a bit for context, because we did skip ahead for people.
That's right.
So a little bit more about me, if you haven't heard already. I entered the Marine Corps back in 2012. 4 days after graduating high school, I went in as a combat correspondent. They name it something different. I think mass communicating strategist now. I went to Japan after passing the school, but then I decided to switch military occupations and did embassy security guard. Went to Bulgaria, went to Madrid, Spain, and went to Chad, Africa. And during all those times, I traveled around here and there and visited about 30 countries. Left in 2018, went straight to school, and it was like a walking simulator. If you guys ever heard that game, just show up to class, do what you have to do. I didn't really care because the GI Bill, if you ever heard of that, it paid me to go to school. So I looked at it as this opportunity to just get money and then get my degree for free. But I didn't really care too much about the paper. I was just mostly writing. I was writing a lot at the time. And then along the way, I met a girl, met her in the first class. We got to the same group. Apparently she was scoping me out. We dated about this, about that. 2 years later, we both graduated. We both decided to come to Nashville, Tennessee. We both were hopeful, young, right out of college, eager. We broke up last week. I've been in transition since. I went to Texas to visit a friend. That friend told me go back to Memphis, and I'm staying at her place because she's staying at her boyfriend's place in Texas. And while doing all that, I'm still keeping track of my orders. Like I had to stop in the car and like do a copywriting gig for someone else, and I have someone else I owe somebody today, and I'm just keeping track of everything.
Like so you got a copywriting business, and you started like a brand, right? Which you just walked away from while you were breaking up with your fiance.
Yes, I broke up with a brand while breaking up with my fiance. Breaking off the disengagement, and I realized along the way that the true passion I had as a business was in writing. I love writing. I love all forms of writing. Poetry, script writing, fantasy novels. I've been working on that for a long time. And then just this year, I started getting into copywriting and realizing, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at this. So that's when I realized, after going through some of the classes and writing 1% class, they're really good. I realized I wasn't pursuing my true passion, which is centered on writing, with the first initial business idea, Battle Goods. It was supposed to be a brand for MMA fighters and all those things, nutrition and all those things. And I did MMA fighting, and I love the sport, but it wasn't number one in my heart. It wasn't the thing that, pushes me to keep going. And I realized this as I was breaking up with my girlfriend, as I was driving in my Mustang you should not take a Mustang long distances, but I'm really glad she held up. So she's a silver 07, but she held up driving back and forth and just with lots of time to think, lots of time to just get into things, lots of time to feel the ride of the emotions and just realizing my purpose is what I show up to do. And so I started an authority site. I just launched it recently, and I'm working on ideas for evergreen content that can be useful for people around the internet. And I'm thinking of basing my real business around that as I do copywriting to help support that. The thing I found really difficult is the fact that even though it's a low cost startup, it's just bringing all the tools together, like getting everything going while in transition and just, getting one foot beyond the other. It's difficult.
There's
Just overwhelming sometimes.
Right. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So I want to say real quick, Henry, I love reading your posts in the group. I think you're a really gifted writer. You're a talented storyteller. You know how to tell a good story. That's what I think comes across. Like the very first post you made in the group, I was like, damn, this guy knows how to tell a story. He knows how to capture attention and keep it. Like I look forward to it. So hearing you say that you've decided that writing really is your passion and that in some way that's what you want to concentrate on in what you're going to create and bring to the world, makes me super excited because I believe that when we are able to unite our talents and our passions with serving other people in some way, that it's like the magic formula. So I see that about to happen. So it's exciting to watch and be a part of that, first of all. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the site that you're starting, if you're willing to share, like what it's going to be, what you envision it being built into. And it'd be really interesting for Bram and I to hear about that. And I think to offer up some ideas that we may have, but also to put that idea out there because, just starting this up yourself, like you said, is can be very intimidating. There's so many things on this checklist to do. It's hard to just like run down the list and check them all off. So I'm hoping that the other people in the group see this and then can offer assistance, based on what their specialties are to just help you get going quick.
Well, since you asked, I guess I might as well tell. So one of the things I was learning during this whole process, I stumbled upon one of the best sites on copywriting is called Copyblogger. And they do really great content marketing and they softly put out what they're able to do, what they're able to provide, and people eat it up. They give out a lot of lessons. And I decided to purchase one of their lesson plans. And it was good. It was stuff I could have learned if I kept sifting through the internet, but at the same time, hearing it from the experts was good. And this was mostly to enhance my copywriting business, which is going to be my main income, which feeds into the business, which I will tell you what the name of is soon. But during that class, someone mentioned, if you're going to write to somebody and you're just starting out, you have to nail down a specific target, a specific audience and all those things. But then he went further. He said, you have to nail down an avatar, a character, somebody that you just make up. And I'm like, well, I do that all the time. I make that up all the time. But then they go further to say, like, sometimes the best avatar is like a person that you used to be, who you are. And I think I thought about that, pondered for a bit as I was, in the whirlwind and everything going on around me. I was in the eye of the storm. And that's when I realized what slowed me down in the past was my doubts about writing being a real job. That the skill, the ability to tell a story and write will not
Why the fuck
pay
should someone give you
dividends.
money for that, right?
Yeah,
It's a hobby. It's not like a real job, like building something or
yeah. And it
starting.
was, yeah, exactly. It's like I did a lot of things to learn more and enhance. Like I joined the military and did journalism, photojournalism, and learned like structure and like interviewing people. Um, I went into school, did digital media, and learned about more about how the internet works and stuff. It was a general class, but I got a bachelor's of science out of it. And then entering copywriting and stuff, and like just realizing that all those things I did, the news, the photojournalism, the classes on poetry, script writing, years sitting in a chair and just typing away 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 words a day for some novel nobody's gonna see. All of that came together and contributed to what I could do for other businesses. And it's that target your audience with emotional, feeling, emphasize what is able and convert for sales. And where that all comes together from that one class about the avatar to what I could do that's my talent. When it comes to this authority site, it just struck me when I started searching for a domain and I typed writingiswork.com. And for some reason, that domain is available. And off of a hunch, I looked up writing is work on Google, and it turns out from years ago, back in 1930, there was a book written by a famous American thriller author who was compared to Christy Aggie. Hold on, let me get her name up right now. Her name is Mary Roberts Reinhardt. She has an incredible story herself, where this woman back in the 1939, she traveled around the world. She was a combat correspondent. She wrote this, that, and the third, but she always went to her desk with trepidation, with fear, with doubt. But she did it all.
So you identify with her?
I identify with her a lot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this name, this domain, writing is work. I was like, .com is like available. In fact, they posted it that it's worth almost probably $1,200. I was like, well, this is just, I don't know if you believe in fate or anything, but I was like, well, ding, 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 an epiphany. So I bought that domain, and so far it's actually launched, but you can look it up right now, writingiswork.com. The slogan is get paid for it. And it's a WordPress site. Doesn't have much on it right now, but the whole point, the whole focus of that authority site is for a younger me who didn't believe that his gifts and talents could get you paid. And there are a lot of avenues for it. Like copywriting is a good way to make a living and fund your dreams later. And there's so many resources on the internet. But the fun thing about authority sites is it's not always about, oh, this person did it first or this person did it better. It's about your personality and what you bring to the table. So yeah, that's why I launched this new business based on the idea that there are writers out there who doubt their ability to write. And if they try to go out on a limb and sell it and learn the skill to sell, which some people doubt the same, but I'm like, I think it's a good idea to learn it because it leads towards book deals, it leads towards you being a better marketer. It all comes together, right?
Mhm.
And
Well, there's this thing with artists, whether it's writers or painters or actors or what have you. Maybe actors a little bit less because there's so much money that's so directly attached to that profession. But it's like the moment that you figure out how to become commercial, you're somehow betraying like the purity of the practice, and it's such a destructive lie, that to figure out how to make money, make a living off of something that you enjoy doing that gives other people pleasure is somehow a betrayal of your art. And
exactly.
it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
like that, right? But nobody, when Gregor and I first met, I was trying to launch a project which has gone to sleep at the time, but it was like, how do I put together a Bachelor of Fine Arts for free? And I was talking to, and just by gathering like internet resources, and you want to become an artist rather than wasting $60,000. Here, I will show you all the resources. You can learn everything you need to know in order to become like a trained fine artist. And when I talked to a lot of people that had gone through that process already and actually spent like the $60,000 in order to get the degree or whatever it is, they said the one thing that was always missing in their training was there was never like a class like, okay, so I'm going to be done and I make really great art. How do I talk to a gallery? Like what kind of conversation do I have with an art collector when they walk into my freezing, fifth story walk up wherever I'm living, and I show them my studio, like, and someone like sees my work. Like, how do I talk to them about money? And nobody teaches this because there's this mythology as if art and money can't go together, where like art and money have been going together for as long as people have been making art and money.
I feel like it's usually the people that may not be the greatest of artists who are really good salesmen, saleswomen.
Sure.
They exceed. They get ahead. And it's such a shame because there's like really good writers, but they never like got like I mentioned in one of my posts how when I got compliments for my writing being lovely, I never got that before.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get like good positive like reinforcement here, this is good, here this is good. But usually when I'm in critical groups, it's like, tearing this apart, that apart, or this technique could be better, this technique could be better. And like you hit a lot of failures and you hit a lot of moments where it's like, man, I'm just gonna quit. But of course I'm addicted to the craft. But then going forward, at some point when I was trying to I learned a lot on my own. I was querying for agents to get representatives to get out my books and everything. At some point, I got struck by this odd sensation where I felt like I had no control. That I was sweating. Maybe a little bit sweating, but like I was literally just going mad, crazy, like working on my art, doing it the best I can, staying seated in the chair and typing away for hours, giving up a social life, disappearing off the face of the world. And as I'm trying to present like my third novel, I've worked on 5 novels so far.
Mm-hmm. How many have you finished? You started 5 or you finished 5?
Well, what's the level of finish? Do you mean to the point where I could try to give it to an agent?
There's a conclusion. It's actually finished. Like there's the whole story arc from
Yeah,
beginning
whole
to end.
stories. Yeah, I've
I've
finished
done
like
5 of those.
yeah,
That's
I've done,
5 more than I've ever finished.
at this point it's almost like 6 or 7, but yeah, there's levels of finish, and it goes higher and higher and higher. But to a real what we consider finish is giving it up to the agent and trying to get it out there.
Mhm.
But at that point, as like I was joining a bunch of writers just in part of this rat race to funnel in to acquire their dream agent, it just struck me how odd it was, how desperate and depressive it was, and out of control. It was so not in my ballpark, or not in my I didn't have hands on like this agent's opinion, or like what happens if they don't accept what I want. And that's what led me. In fact, it was after finishing my last novel, Neverheart, that I left Miami, went to Nashville. Things didn't work out. I'm back here. It comes back full circle. But I will say, even after all the money that's lost, I'm in a better position now than I was after finishing that last novel, because now I understand there are other ways to acquiring attention in the audience and leveling the playing field. And this is what a lot of writers don't know. And this is what leads me to my authority site, writingiswork.com.
Mhm.
Get paid for it. And it's just like any other authority site. Just focus on evergreen articles. And I think I'm gonna just do one a week. I'm not gonna post fast.
I think it's even more than that, Henry.
Yeah.
It's like if you can tap into figuring out like a no bullshit way of talking about how to make a living off of writing, as opposed to how to be like there's lots of romance attached to being a starving artist, but anybody who,
Oh, I hate that. I hate it
it
so
fucking
much.
sucks. Nobody enjoys being a starving artist. Everybody likes the idea of being a starving artist, especially when their belly is full.
Actually,
That looks, all that suffering looks absolutely fantastic.
now that you mention it, I'm gonna have to. That actually gave me an idea for my lead line,
All right.
my site. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Always have notebooks nearby.
Yeah.
But please keep going.
It's an occupational hazard. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. Henry, at this point, do you feel like any of your novels are at a point where they're publishable?
Yeah, they could publish.
Do
But
you have any?
now I know more.
Do you have any interest in doing that? And just, I mean, because you don't nowadays, if you wanted to, you could self-publish. You could self-publish on Amazon, Kindle Direct Publishing, and then when somebody buys the book, Amazon prints a copy and ships it to the customer. So you don't have to go through traditional publishing. You don't have to hold inventory. You just upload the text, set up, have like cover art, and then sell it. So, I mean, that's doable. I haven't done that myself, so I don't know what the process is, but I know that I think there's people in the group. Didn't Myra publish her cookbook on KDP? So we can ask her about that if you're interested. But you're talking about basically giving writers the knowledge and the tools to be able to turn their craft into a business, turn their craft into livelihood, so that they can do this for a living. And if you feel like you have a novel that's ready to go, it might be an interesting exercise for you to go through the steps to publish it, and then go through the steps to launch it. So using the things that we learn inside of the 1%, you could launch your book to an audience, to this audience, or we could help you wrangle one up. I wouldn't necessarily create a new one. I'd say find the type of people who would like to read the one you pick, and let's like go after an influencer or whatever and put it out there, right? And then after you have this sales spike for your book, now you can publish an article on your blog about how you just self-published a novel, and like here's just go through exactly what you just did.
It is so much
to other
deeper,
people.
right? And you're absolutely right, Greg. It's so much deeper than that. It's like regardless of the results, Henry, if you can just demonstrate the reality of going through that process and demystify it, whether you sell 5 copies or 5,000 copies, it really doesn't matter. It's sort of the same kind of reasoning that we've had behind doing Regular Joe, where it's 2 things. It sounds like a lot of fun. So that's a prime motivator. But the other motivator is like, we keep on talking about the fact that you shouldn't have so many hangups and just be ready to fuck up quickly and then learn from that. And there's only so many times that we can say that without doing it ourselves. So that's sort of what we're doing. I think that if you're trying to talk to authors and writers about figuring out how to turn their art into something that can actually be a living, going through the processes of trying to make that into a living and doing that out in the open, I mean, that's incredibly useful, because there's so much BS posturing about, like, there's so much misunderstanding about how social media really works. Everybody seems to think, well, that's not fair. A lot of people seem to think that it is about just projecting success. And I think that you can get a lot more interest by demonstrating like the true struggle of what it takes to do things.
Demonstrating the steps of what that process looks like and sharing that with people to demystify like how simple it can be to self-publish.
That would be super powerful.
Just sharing that with other people, no matter what the sales numbers end up being, I think that could be content that would be super, super valuable to the type of people that you want to speak to. So just a thought I had. I mean, if you have novels like ready to go, you might consider just going through the exercise of publishing one and just see what happens. But share with everybody what happens.
Document the entire process and just show them step by step.
Yeah.
No, there's actually, the fun part about novel writing is as you read and grow and learn more, the ones you did in the past, you start to see some of the holes. Mm-hmm. So I'm recreating one I did a while ago and seeing how that process go. But I do like the idea. There's a hard reality to self-publishing, because I've looked down that rabbit hole too. Bloated, completely full, completely hard, and you have to go at it at a considerably fast rate. But
I'm sorry. What do you mean with bloated, completely full?
It's.
You mean there's a shitload of people that self-publish and most people don't manage to sell a damn thing?
Yes, that is the
Have you ever seen the remnants bin at any bookstore?
I have seen them.
Those are the same. That's the same thing. Like the fact that you get a regular publisher who will print your book and put 5,000 copies in a bunch of Barnes and Nobles. There is no guarantee there whatsoever that you're not going to end up in the remnants bin. Yeah. So the fact that there is a way to get,
but no, wait.
Yeah.
There is a guarantee. If you do it the right way, there is a guarantee. Just like traditional publishing, same with self-publishing, same with a physical product. If you have people ready to buy it before it's even available for sale.
You mean build an audience?
Either build an audience or borrow an audience.
Yeah.
But that same strategy sells books. And so instead of go ahead.
Actually, sorry to cut in. So this is what I want. This is definitely where I want to say in the authority site follows the model of building an audience and congregating an audience and raising an audience, then launching my own endeavors. But it doesn't always have to go self-pubbing.
Yeah.
If I still want to do traditional, there's a lot of sway you have when you come into a meeting with an agent and say, I have this book ready and I have 100,000 people that follow me.
I think there's two parts to this, Henry.
Yeah.
One, you've got 5 novels. So if you self-publish a novel now and you go through the entire process and you sell 3.5 copies, that process is still going to be tremendously worthwhile, because that'll grow an audience. Like you'll be able to talk about how much it sucks, like how difficult it was, everything that you've done. And I looked at this and they're supposed to be right. And 10,000 people did this and it worked for them and it didn't work for me and what have you, and sort of draw lessons from that, whether it succeeds or not. So that's one. And then you can do that and then just say, well, screw it. I guess self-publishing, this is why self-publishing is tough. I'm now going to try and go through a traditional publishing, and maybe that works or it doesn't work. Or you go through a traditional publisher first and that bombs and you end up in the remainder pile, or you succeed, or whatever happens with if you can
the result of the action
exactly if you can be not attached to the end of it, then the whole process is incredibly worthwhile and it'll build you a fantastic audience.
Yeah, sharing the process, no matter what the end result is of those different steps, is the more important piece.
I'd be excited to see what happens, however you decide to publish it, and just sort of follow and figure out what you're doing. And whether you sell it self-published or traditional, I'd be really excited to buy your book, and I hopefully enjoy it and recommend it to people. But the fact that I'd be able to see you taking it from where you had like a finished manuscript, and then you're deciding how to get it out there, it's fascinating.
Yeah. I just have one more book thing, because I don't want to push the publishing thing on you if that's not where you want to go right now. But I'm just curious.
You must do what Greg says. I'd say you're fine.
What genre are these generally in, or one specific one that you think is close to ready? What genre is it in?
I love the speculative fiction superhero genre with a bit of a twist. If I was to talk about one project in specific, a specific one I'm working on the most, that I've been working on the past 4 years, on and off again. I'm on my 6th draft with it. It's about the son of the greatest hero ever, who becomes a villain and decides to become the king of villains. He ends up sent to a prison-like environment where the world dump all their prisoners and all their villains, and it's like Lord of the Flies craziness. And his story is to break free of that and rise as the king of villains. It's a twist on, imagine if all the heroes were dogmatic zealots and they arrest and harass any person for not following code or walking the line. So if I was going to start with anything, that would probably be the first book I send out there, which is more of a social. It's a bit of a satire and criticism towards the prison complex, the industrial prison complex,
and everything that's going on now. Yeah, that sounds kind of.
It sounds like a something that would be topically relevant, something that people right now would be interested in and have themes through it that they would identify with. So I think that could do well. So I'm just curious, if you want to, if you talk about it in the group, just like you did now, if there's anybody out there who already has an audience who they think would pair well with this. I mean, again, if somebody lends you an audience, if somebody says, "Hey, Henry, I have 10,000 people, and this is what we generally talk about," and I think they would dig what you just described. So if you do publish it, maybe we could set up a special deal for my people. And I mean, if this is just an exercise to go through the process of doing this, you could set up some sort of crazy promo where they could sell it to their 10,000 people for like $1, right?
Yeah. And
you have this giant launch spike. Even though you don't make any money on that initial launch, then you can say, my first self-published novel was a runaway hit. I sold 10,000 copies in the first 2 weeks, right? Now it's a lot easier to go to a traditional publisher for novel number 2. They don't necessarily need to know about all the mechanics behind that, or the fact that you borrowed an audience. And again, you can document the entire thing and be totally transparent with your blog people, and people are going to read that and be like, "What? You could do that? Holy crap!" And you might change other people's lives out there who are running up against this brick wall about how to get their content out there, right? Because they only see one distribution mechanism. And just to demonstrate that there's other ways to do it and that there's ways to kind of hack it, I think would be really interesting. And then and then you overcome that hurdle yourself. Just like any physical product launch, oftentimes when you first get it out there, it's about building momentum and getting exposure and customers, and you dial in the profit piece on the back end. But once you have, once you get out there, then it's like, once you have sales, then you can kind of optimize it. But to make that first full price sale without the audience is really difficult. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of people publishing a lot of stuff to crickets. But
this is really true. It's also really sad because within my writing groups, I started talking about maybe for a lot of people want to do traditional publishing because they don't want to market. They don't want to put themselves too much out there. They just want to focus on their writing. The problem is,
but that ship sailed, right? That's none of all of the traditional publishing going to say, okay, where's your Twitter following? Go work in your Twitter following. Where's your Facebook group? You don't have 10,000 people in your Facebook group? Go away. It's like being like the introvert writer. It's a tough time when you don't like talking to people. As a writer, as you said before, you might be like an amazing writer. If you don't know how to jump on a YouTube video or something and talk about your book, you're screwed. But that's always been the case. It's just that now it's like the people that were getting sold before were either people that were good at TV or good at cocktail parties. But it's the same. It's the same muscle.
I disagree slightly. I think
up yours, Greg.
I think if you're good at telling stories, if you just adapt that skill a little bit and use your storytelling ability to sell yourself, to sell your art.
This is
and that's
true,
what you're doing, Henry.
Greg, there's a fundamental difference to writing something on a piece of paper and talking to a human being. They're two different muscles. They're not the same thing.
Storytelling is storytelling. Henry. What I'm saying is if you adapt your storytelling ability to learn to leverage that into learning how to write good copy, then you don't necessarily have to get on video. You can sell yourself and your art through good copy.
I would also add on top of that. I think learning how to sell is a skill that some writers might not appreciate, because one of the mind blocks in my head in art was that I don't want to be, salesman. It goes back to the idea that you're missing out all these opportunities because you don't want to be this thing or that thing. You want to be purely for the art. And that's where the pitfall happens, when you don't realize nobody's going to take what you want if you cannot present it to them in a neat way that hits on their, psyche, on their buttons.
Yeah.
This is why Writing is Work, the site I launched, is actually focused on copywriting, which is something I'm super invested in now. I'm still writing my books in the background. And as I squeeze as much evergreen content out of that, I'm gonna move over to, I actually really like the idea of like going through a whole self-publishing.
I think like it's like a backstory about like, I'm doing this on copywriting, and I love copywriting, and this is what I'm learning about it, and this is what I want to share with you, and sharing that backstory where you started from writing novels, and you're sort of doing both at the same time, because you've evolved enough to understand that you need to develop both of those muscles in order to make it in the world. Purity is a nice idea, but that's great when you're 22, when you're trying to and it's a good thing that 22-year-olds are focused on purity, but at a certain point you need to understand that not all of that work. I mean, sometimes it's difficult eating and being pure at the same time. And it's nice to eat. It's not dirty to it's such a central part to the human experience to make a living and pay your way. So why should artists be exempt of having to do that? It's as if you're denying yourself part of the human experience, or
worse than that. And just to throw the idea out there, I went to a writers group and asked a question of, if any of you guys got told writing isn't real work, and how did that make you feel? Some people were like, I haven't been told this, but I understand the sentiment. One person, this was really interesting. One person was like, if you don't get a paycheck, it's not real.
That's obviously bullshit too.
Hold on, but here's the funny thing. I was like, so is your life, and he's on a writing group, and I'm like, is your life a cycle of just paying bills and staying above water? And then he says, hey, my dad loves playing golf, but he doesn't make money off of that. You have a good day writing, sir. And I'm like, but people make deals on the golf course. So, but then I go into my true target audience based off that question come out, and there's people who say, I've been told this when I was young. It gave me difficulties of being confident in my writing. And then, but recently I just started, selling, being a ghostwriter, and people like my work, and it's starting to lift off. Or another person, this is the worst case. He ran away from writing and did all sorts of other things, got a dozen certificates, multiple degrees, lived his life doing everything else other than what he truly wanted, and he regrets it.
And all he could have, if he just figured out how to sell his craft, it would have been fine. Selling is just a way of communicating. This is the way. And it's taken me a long time to realize this. Selling is just another way of communicating, and the way that people express their agreement is by the fact that they give you money. But it's no different than writing a story and touching someone's heart, or building a car that figuring out how to make, like Elon Musk is doing, figuring out how to make electronic cars a business, or any figuring out how to make people feel better about yoga. They're all, as long as there's a fair exchange and everybody sort of leaves off better from the exchange, it's great. And part of that has to do with selling, because people don't people have habits, and they're stuck in their habits, right? And they could have a better life by experiencing things that they're unaware of. So if you sell them something that they've never experienced, you've made their life better. That's all there's, I mean, and sure, I mean, everybody can be like a sleazy like used cars salesman, but that's just a caricature. The majority of human exchanges are not like that. It's nice. It fits in a movie, and it's a good excuse for not figuring out how to ask someone for money for the work that you've done. And it makes, I don't know why it makes people feel dirty. It's like, you do good work, it's worth something, and all you need to do is, I'd like you to pay for that. And then most people say, yes, please, I'd like to pay for that.
Sometimes it could be laziness, I think, too, because
it's fear more than laziness. It's like people don't want to be uncomfortable.
No, but it can be laziness if you don't want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
If you know there's something bothering you and you're denying something. And I learned this from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Sometimes it's laziness. Sometimes it is fear, but it takes work to go after something you truly want when the rest of the world could be like, no. And one of the most interesting things from that book I recently finished, Robert Kiyosaki, Robert, he said, how do you defeat laziness? Greed. And never have I heard that you could use a little bit of greed to get your ass out the door,
mm-hmm.
to go after what you want, because it does require some selfishness, and that's not always bad. Like I like, now that I'm like getting into copywriting and everything, I charge a very small amount and I overgive because I deep down I want this thing to work, and it gives all the customers I get for copywriting, it gives me a chance to work on what they have, to learn as I go, and like just give, because if you always say to yourself, I'm gonna give the most I can beyond what I'm paid for, and then understand that later is for a bigger goal, is for you gotta gain in the end. You can't go wrong.
Of course you can.
Speaking, let me throw something in. Speaking of what you're charging right now in this group, you need to raise your prices at some point. Like
yesterday. Yeah.
So what I'd say is you're like, people who you've worked with should be insanely grateful for what you've done, for what you've done it for. It's crazy. So you're being tremendously generous in what you're offering right now, which is a fine way to start. Collect testimonials from every single person that you're working with, including us.
Mm-hmm.
So collect a testimonial. Say, hey, what'd you think of it? Like, how'd it go? And we'll send you a Facebook message, screenshot that, and just start building a catalog of testimonials for when you raise your prices tenfold. Because when you raise your prices tenfold, you can have that like an entire screen that people have to scroll through of all the 5-star reviews that people have given you, and they will think nothing about paying you 10 times what you're asking right now, because they will have the demonstrated proof that you're very good at what you do. So just I wanted to mention that before I forgot, because
I'm excited for the day I decide to raise my prices, because this has been part of the strategy since day one. I was like,
so Henry, when in your mind now, when are you imagining that you'll raise your prices?
2021.
Okay, so people should.
I'm okay with that only because it's 2 months away.
2021. I'm gonna gather debt from all of you guys, and I'm gonna come collect.
Awesome.
You have 2 months and a couple of days.
Yeah.
Don't wait too long.
Yeah, but the good news about it all is just, I started to learn what I really, because it's general at first, but then I started to learn what I really specialize at, and I think video scripts are really fun.
Mm-hmm.
The one I did for you guys, Regular Joe, that one was really good. The next thing is sales and landing pages for conversions,
Mm-hmm.
or like anything that hits on an emotional beat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The stuff that just hits on an emotional beat has a little bit of humor or something that's important. One of my favorite I worked on was Yasmin for biomology.
Biomology.
Yes,
She's gonna hate the fact that you butchered her name because she's sort of self-conscious about the name of. I think her name is great.
Biomology.
Biomology.
Prenatal
Biomology. It just
probiotics.
rolls off the tongue, right? Biomology.
Yeah, the probiotics. I worked on that one. That one I was doing her main page to like give it a bit more pizzazz and get more like an emotional pull.
Mm-hmm.
That one was really fun and interesting to do because it as long as the person I'm working with feels strongly and passionate about what they are doing, what they are giving to the world,
Mm-hmm.
I will match you 100% and sometimes beyond. But I will not. I learned this too about copywriters. At some point in your career, you gotta start telling people no.
Mhm.
That's the fun part. That's the part I'm really excited for. Where I get to tell people no.
But that's why you need to raise your prices.
But most because you can even if you're like when you get to high demand and you can be like I'm gonna be like, because some things might be a price issue or some things come down to like if I feel like you care about what I'm doing for your product.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just like you're just grabbing at some copywriter and just like whatever, here, do this, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, no. But of course, once I start raising my prices,
Well, that's going to be another 350%. Thank you very much.
yeah. Well, yeah. Just that's the thing I'm focusing for my authority site. Sorry, the line's dark. Is on my copywriting process. But I think your guys' ideas about going into what it's like to do self-publishing, and then as the audience grows, what's it like to bring to the table to a traditional publisher your audience and just show like the process, just no bullshit. This is what I'm doing. This is what's happening. This is why I'm doing it. And I want you guys to be prepared to be informed. I want from my avatar, from my audience, I want them to know, even if you're working on your novels right now,
Mm-hmm.
find ways to use your gift to make money.
Yeah.
Try copywriting. I'm gonna give out plenty of resources. Try ghostwriting if you have to, and then go beyond trying to just make the industry standard.
But that's exactly it. I think it'll add so much depth to your relationship with your audience when they can see like you're
Mm-hmm.
okay. So he's just like me. He's actually got a bunch of novels in his drawer, and he's doing that, and he's copywriting. And rather than feeling like a prostitute copywriting, he's actually enjoying it. So he's not selling out. It's like both of these are possible. And
Yep.
it doesn't, you don't have to have everything figured out the first time around. Sometimes it takes like 3 to 7 times or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Just like drafting a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, I am so looking forward to talking to you like 6 months from now and seeing where the hell you are. I know that when we first talked about you coming on, you wanted to be like more quote unquote put together. I think you're more than put together enough. I mean, you got, I think the way that you're going makes a lot of sense to me, but I can't wait to see where you take this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited too, because I have ideas and plans and like all the resources. There's so much resource, so much. Like I was reading, it got to a point where I had to take a day off and shut down because it becomes information overload.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of resource out there that you can seek and learn, and it's mostly for free. But I do join a couple people out there here and there. But if I was to like give out like some of the most important parts of where I'm at right now, I will say that try not to go into a business that you think will lead to what you really want to do. Because this was in one of Ryan's classes. He mentioned this. You're thinking of just trying to make money that will help you do what you really want to do. Honestly, the way to really exceed is to bring, like you said, bridge what you love doing with the practicality of how you can finance it.
Yep.
How can you finance what you love doing? How can you share it with your audience so they will finance you of what you love doing? And that's what's running through my head is, how can I do this? How can I do that? How can I make my dream a reality and then share it with other people?
Awesome. Thank you for spending an hour with us talking about what you're doing. I think that you bring tremendous value to this group, and I think most of the people in the group would agree. So, along this journey, if you have questions or if you need something, throw it out there, and people will be happy to give you a hand, because you've already helped so many people so much with just the things that you've posted or the copywriting that you've provided. So just know that the whole community is behind you, wanting to help you to achieve what you want to do. So again, thanks for your time today. I know it was kind of last minute pulling this together, but we're really happy we got to speak.
Nah, no problem whatsoever. And I'm glad you guys had me, Bram, Greg. Thanks. Also, how did I do on the podcast? Because maybe that's something else I could do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always happy to do that.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah. All right.
John.
This was absolutely great. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Back at you. Do I just exit now, or do we?
No.
Bram's going to end the stream.
I'm just going to end it, and then it's just going to be done, and it'll be like we never talked.